Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Before we start with our today's daily quiz, we have an announcement. Byju's IAS is conducting Byju's National Scholarship Test, which is scheduled to be conducted on 14th of November 2021. How do you register? Follow the link given in the description box, give the necessary details, and you would stand a chance of winning some attractive scholarships. Let's get started and look into the first question. Consider the following statements with respect to MP-LATS funds. Funds released to district authorities under MP-LATS are not lapsable. The MP-LATS is a central sector scheme fully funded by the Government of India. The Ministry of Rural Development is the administrative ministry for the scheme at center. Which of the above statements are correct? The answer to this is 1 and 2 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article here makes a mention of MP-LAT scheme. Let us try and understand what are these options. When we look into the MP-LAT scheme, what does it stand for? It stands for Members of Parliament Local Area Developmental Scheme. This happens to be a central sector scheme. What is a central sector scheme? Where the entire contributions is made by the central government. When it comes to centrally sponsored scheme, you have some contribution made by the central government. You also have contributions from the state government. But when it comes to MP-LAT funds, it is entirely contributed by the central government. So the second option is right. When was this launched? This was launched back in the year 1993-94. Since this is a central sector scheme, it is contributed by the central government, and every single member of the parliament would get as much as 5 crore for the development of his constituency. So the second statement is right. When we look into the first statement, funds released to district authorities under MP-LATS are not lapsable. This is a right statement. What do we mean by it? Whenever there is a Government of India's program or a financial outlay is given to one of the programs, what would happen? That fund given for one financial year would lapse at the end of the financial year. What do we mean by it? Let's assume for a moment the Government of India to one of the schemes has given about 100 crores. So this particular ministry and the department and the executive authorities will have to make use of this finances within one financial year. If they are not able to ensure that they are spending this entire 100 crores for the scheme in that financial year, it immediately lapses, which means the remaining amount may go back to the government coffers. But when it comes to the MP-LAT funds, it is not lapsable, which means the money that is left over can be carried forwarded to the next financial year as well. So the first option is also right. The third option is wrong. Why? That is because the Ministry of Rural Development is not the administrative ministry for the scheme at the center, but instead it is the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. It is this ministry which is responsible for the policy formulation. It ensures that the release of funds happens on time, and at the same time it also prescribes the monitoring mechanism for the implementation of the scheme. How does this scheme work? Let's assume for a moment I am a member of the parliament representing Bangalore North constituency. What happens? I would be given about 5 crores. 5 crores not in person. I would not be given in cash, or it would not be deposited in my account directly, but instead it will be given to the local authorities. If I am elected from a Lok Sabha constituency, I would be able to suggest the local authorities that you take care of these programs. You can come up with durable assets over a period of time. So the money is given to the local authorities. How much? 5 crores would be given. So I would be able to suggest the local authorities as an MP in my own constituency if I am representing a Lok Sabha constituency. What if it is a Rajya Sabha member? The Rajya Sabha member would be able to select any constituency in the state that he is selected from. If it is an MP who selected from the state of Madhya Pradesh, he can select any constituency in the state of Madhya Pradesh. Or if he is selected from the state of Maharashtra, any constituency in Maharashtra can be selected. What if it is a nominated member? We have nominated members in Lok Sabha. We also have nominated members in the Rajya Sabha. If there are nominated members, any constituency in any state in India can be selected. In fact, they can also split among two constituencies as well in a particular state, and developmental activities can be initiated. But remember, most of these activities should be in the creation of durable community assets like the road, like the school building, so on and so forth, and very small amount, or the recommendation for the non-durable assets is very limited when it comes to these funds. It is this that we have to understand when it comes to this practice question. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following pairs. We have martial arts on one side, we have the state that it is practiced in on the other side. Kalaripayattu, Kerala; Mardani Kel, Rajasthan; Bharikanda, Uttar Pradesh; Thoda, Madhya Pradesh. Which of the above pairs are correctly matched? The answer to this is one only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article here makes a mention of Kalaripayattu. This happens to be an ancient martial art form from the state of Kerala. If you look into the other options, Mardani Kel is not from the state of Rajasthan, but instead it is from the state of Maharashtra. When it comes to Bharikanda, it is not from the state of Uttar Pradesh, but instead it is from the state of Bihar. And Thoda is not from the state of Madhya Pradesh, but instead it is from the state of Himachal Pradesh. There are other important martial art forms from India. One happens to be Silambam, which is from the state of Tamil Nadu; Gatka, which is from the state of Punjab; Huon Langlon, which is from the state of Manipur; Komlanai as part of the Assam's culture. As part of the assignment, there are other martial art forms in India from different states. Kindly put them on the comment section. Now let's look into the next practice question. With respect to Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary, which of the following statements are correct? It is the second largest stretch of mangrove forest in India. The sanctuary is declared as a Ramsar site. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is one only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article here makes a mention of Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary. The Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary is one of the wildlife sanctuaries in the state of Andhra Pradesh. It is the second largest stretch of mangrove forest in India, and it is also home to some of the critically endangered whiteback vultures as well as long-billed vultures. When we look into the second option, it is wrong. Why? That is because the Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary is not a Ramsar site. In fact, it has all the eligibilities. In fact, we have environmentalists who are also fighting for the cause of bringing this under the Ramsar site as well. But as of now, we do not have this Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary as part of Ramsar site. Further, the article makes a mention of the fishing cat. Its IUCN status is vulnerable. It is the state animal of West Bengal, and its numbers are decreasing primarily because of the destruction of wetlands and because of the industrial activities taking place in its area. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which is the best description of Janjatiya Gaurav Divas? It is the day to remember the contributions of tribal freedom fighters. It is observed every year to convey the importance of nurses in the healthcare system. It is a day to acknowledge the contributions of women who have fought against trafficking. It is celebrated every year to honor animal welfare and animal rights activists. Which is the best description of Janjatiya Gaurav Divas? The answer to this is it is the day to remember the contributions of tribal freedom fighters. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article here makes a mention of Janjatiya Gaurav Divas. This will be celebrated every year on November 15th. Why November 15th? That is because this marks the birth anniversary of revered tribal leader, which happens to be Birsa Munda. The decision has been taken by the government of India to remember the contributions of the tribal freedom fighters, and at the same time such contributions will have to be remembered by the future generation so that they preserve our culture and the heritage. Now let's look into the next practice question. With reference to cultural history of India, the memorizing of chronicles, dynastic histories and epic tales was the profession of who of the following? Shramana, Parivraj, Agraharika, Magadha. The answer to this is Magadha. This happens to be a previous year question from the year 2016. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion is FCRA. It stands for Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. This act was originally envisaged and enacted back in the year 1976, but major amendments were introduced in the year 2010, which now stands as Foreign Contribution Regulation Act of 2010. Amendments were also introduced in the year 2020. There were some of the rules which was also introduced in 2015 as well. So the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act is one of the important acts which deals with foreign donations. What happens? There are a number of companies which are operating in foreign countries. So what do? They want to bring about welfare schemes and programs in India, want to contribute to the developmental progress of India. Since they cannot directly engage in it, what do? They also contribute to the NGOs. There are NGOs in India who work on the social level, on the educational level, religious level, economic development and cultural purposes. So these foreign companies contribute to the NGOs. If everything was good, if everything had a positive outside and a positive outlook, the government need not have to come up with a regulation. However, there are few companies which contribute to these NGOs which may also have adverse effects on the internal security. To regulate the foreign donations made by a foreign company to an NGO in India, what we require is a law. That law is called as the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. So basically, the money that is sent from a foreign company to one of the NGOs operating in India is regulated. They ask the NGO, where are you spending the money? Where is this money coming from? What is it being contributed for? If it is for the right intention, if it is for an intended objective, the government will not interfere with the affairs of the NGO. However, if the money is received for the educational purposes, but if it can adversely impact the sovereignty and integrity of India, friendly relationship with the foreign countries, or it can also become an internal security issue, in such a case, the regulations is done under this particular act. Which is the ministry which implements this act? It is the Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, which implements this particular act. So basically, it is mandatory for all the NGOs who receive foreign contributions, foreign donations to register as part of Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. So the registered associations can receive their foreign contributions for the social, educational, religious, economic and cultural purposes, and at the same time, while they spend for all these activities, they also have to file annual returns on the lines of income tax, which is compulsory under this particular act. But remember, if they are not complying by it, if they are diverting the money for one cause to another cause, in such a case, they will come under the vigilant eyes of the Ministry of Home Affairs. So if they are diverting for some other purposes, then such an activity will immediately be stopped, restrictions would be imposed, and penal provisions can also be enforced on such an activity. Let me give you one of the examples why FCRA is important. Let's say we have one of the foreign companies. This foreign companies has contributed to one of the NGOs. This NGO's initial objective is to bring health reforms in the country or bring about educational reforms in the country. Instead of it contributing to the educational success and the health related issues, what does this NGO do? It also contributes to some of the strikes in India. It indirectly funds people to go against the government of India. So ideally, it should have worked for the progress of the educational sector, but instead it is creating a problems to the government of India by diverting the funds towards the strikes for the infrastructural activity. So in all these cases, what we have is foreign donations which are being misused as part of the program. So in order to control this, what we required was a law which is called as the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Remember, there is one of the case currently in Supreme Court. We will have to wait and watch what would be the Supreme Court judgment. Once we have the judgment, we will take up this article in an elaborate way. This is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.